Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Christy, good to see you again. KP, we will see you very soon. So we are back. It's The Last Word, brought to you by the Chrisman Commentary. And this week, we're sponsored by PRMG, built by originators for originators. I always wanted to say that. And Finlocker as well, another fine company. But Christy, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So for the audience, KP will join us momentarily. There he is. He's
nice to see you too.
Wait, you got on your UT orange. This is like.
He is horns up, heading to Austin for the big game, and he's going to brave the security line at John Wayne, and then will be on screen with us. So it just seems like we did this last Friday, Christy. These weeks are flying by.
They are. And you're right. It is a big game this weekend. For anybody who is not a college football fan or maybe doesn't follow the SEC, it is UT Georgia for the very first UT Georgia SEC game.
Yeah, it could be the end of Georgia's playoff hopes with any luck. That's sure to get some response. So Christy, before we kind of look backwards, maybe at some of the things of the week and get into, the typical topics, we've got Mortgage Bankers Association annual conference. A lot of our friends in the industry will be making their way to Denver, Colorado next weekend for the annual MBA. And before we went live, you and I were kind of not complaining at all, but just comparing notes on the busyness typically of these calendars and agendas for the conference. And it's another busy one coming up.
I think it's always good to talk about conferences and why do you go? What do you get out of them? And, some conferences are solely for the networking and connecting with folks. Some conferences are like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so much value in the speakers and what we're going to learn, or the roundtable that you're attending. An annual is a conference that kind of shoves it all together and then adds some huge conversations and value with your partners, because you can get a lot of in-person things done where you don't have to travel, or your vendor partner doesn't have to travel. And it really is. Oh, I guess Kevin had to turn off his phone.
Yeah, he'll be back.
When he went through security, so we know where Kevin is.
Here's what happens, folks, when we preset the studio with this beautiful backdrop made by our art director, Brian View, not the best artist. And then when you lose your third co-host, the screen gets jacked. So bear with us. This will make for good entertainment.
Absolutely. But I do think that this conference is one of those that kind of puts a lot of content plus a lot of networking and the opportunity to meet with vendor partners. Look at you. And to meet with vendor partners so that you get a lot accomplished. And I like to have a nice selection of vendor partners that we currently work with and those that we hope to work with or want to learn more about, though the conversation was there's just never enough time to do it all. The one thing this conference lacks always is sleep.
Yes. Yeah. It's an awesome point, because everybody seems to pack everything in. And this year, especially, this is kind of funny. The first invitations I started seeing were not formal, business meetings. It was all the evening reception events, and there's some good ones. We've got, of course, Freedom Mortgage hosting the big event with Katy Perry, and then the MBA has Gloria Estefan prior to that, and I think Radian might be one of the main sponsors for that event. So Monday night's always a fun one because of the two opportunities for some musical entertainment. But yeah, the dance card, definitely the evening receptions came fast and furious. And I'm backing into my day meetings by who can I strategically meet at one or more of those evening receptions. And then, because I'm trying to be a little more intentional with my calendar and actually be in some of the sessions, because I think I tend to miss those each year, and I'm really trying to focus on being in a couple of those key sessions. By the way, there's a session Monday afternoon that everybody should tune into, and if you're there and you go into the hub, the exhibit hall, on one of the hub stages, yours truly will be on a panel with four of my esteemed friends and colleagues in the industry, talking about all things making meaningful connections. So
that'll be a good
session. Shameless plug.
A good session. This is not a platform for sharing. Like there's not a share button, but if I could show you my schedule, it's all color coded and coordinated. And then I've got a corresponding map that tells me where I need to walk or go and where I need to be. But to your point, and for those of you that know me, this is not like out of the ordinary. The number of purple sessions, which is attending the MBA sessions, I have a lot more of those this year than I have in the past. I think there's some really great speakers and topics, to your point. So a lot of knowledge to come back with. I bought a new toy. So if you can see this is called a Plaud. I think that's how you say it, Plaud. And it records. So I'm also a very good note taker, but I want to be more present. That's one of my goals that I've been working on this year. And so this cool device will actually take my notes for me, use AI to summarize them so that I can then share them out with folks on the team here with a few additions of things that I remembered or that I personally took notes from. So I'm really excited to try that. This will be my first conference with it. I've had it for a week.
I love that.
And kind of a fun toy.
It'll be interesting. Are you planning on having that run during some of the sessions as well?
Yeah.
It'll be fascinating to see how well it listens and recaps for you.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. We'll see how it works. I'll let you know. It's gone really well in the meetings that I've used it in to create action items and follow up and share the meeting notes. And if many of you that use Zoom, you can get that transcription service that kind of does the same thing. And this gives me an opportunity to do that in meetings where we're not on Zoom or Teams and can't do that. And I think that leads into a great conversation that you and I kind of started a little bit last week in talking about technology and artificial intelligence and how we see that impacting the marketplace.
For sure. I'll start by saying I'm seeing, heading into the conference week, right? And then I don't know if you saw the post this morning that Greg Scher put out. If you haven't, go check it out. He put out a post talking about 37 spam email messages that he has received in the last week, asking to meet at MBA, right? And it's not the fact that he or us gets 37 messages. His point was that, of the 37, it was clear that all 37 were either very generic, right? They were not personalized and specific to him, and or even potentially written by AI. And so that's where I'll start with AI, is just this amazing how I'm seeing, especially like on LinkedIn, the AI messages and inbox messages that just are flooding in. And I have some major concerns with what that activity is resulting in for those of us that are taking the time, especially those of us on the partner vendor side of the world, right? We're trying to get on your schedule, Christy, and KP's calendar, right, at these events. And you all are just flooded with these requests, rightfully so. But how many can you pay attention to when you're getting these spammies that are, just crushing you?
I am 1,091 emails behind
at
this point, which me, so that's not normal.
Right.
And I think probably 4 of them are not some kind of sales type solicitation AI message, at least in the ones that I've received today. And some of these go back a couple of days where I've kind of scanned through them and I just need to get in and do some deleting. But as we continue to see that, the value of a message goes back to, man, those handwritten notes, going to start to really pay off. If you're doing handwritten notes, I have, I was going to show you, I have a handwritten note on my desk, literally, that I got. This has so much more value than all of those messages combined. I actually opened it, read it, sent a response to it, versus I can't keep up and actually respond to all the email messages.
No, it has never been more important to, separate yourself and be able to stand out, right? It's honestly not any different than creating content and putting it on LinkedIn, right? If your content, your post, your format looks just like everybody else that day, it's so easy just to
scroll by,
keep scrolling. And so this week I had a little scroll stopper. I took a picture of me on a stage when I was 18 years old with a toga on, sunglasses, and high top leather Nikes, right? And that's a scroll stopper for all kinds of reasons. Probably most of them not very good. But I had a message that I wanted to get out and make sure people were aware of, which is, I'll be at MBA. I'm going to be on a panel, but I also want to, have opportunities to meet with clients and prospects and partners and friends and all that. And who knew that, a picture of me from almost 40 years ago in a toga would be what it took to stand out, this week for whatever reason on the LinkedIn platform.
But I think about it not just from your social content, but how many of the folks that are joining us for the last word are involved in recruiting or are involved in connecting with real estate agents? And are you using email marketing? So how is your email marketing landing when the folks that you are recruiting or the folks that you hope to do business with are probably the prettiest girl at the dance, and they're receiving the 37 messages that Greg talked about, or they're part of the 1,091 that I have in my email? So how do we provide value? What does that look like when you're communicating?
Yeah. So Greg had a great point, and it might've been in one of the comments, all of us, most of us that are on the LinkedIn platform, and some of the outreach he received was through LinkedIn. So there's not even an excuse for this, but a lot of us put our history on there, whether it's where we used to work, where we went to school, some, interests, other stuff that we are, involved in. And, Greg in a comment just said, it's not too hard if you were to scroll down my profile to know that early in my career, this is Greg talking, I was a sportscaster. So you want to get the attention of me in my inbox and connect with me? How about start by referencing, I thought of you when I thought of, the game I watched last night and the sportscaster that was covering it, whatever, right? That's my big grief or gripe with, AI as it relates to some of the lazy top of funnel activity that I see out there with the spammy outreach.
Well, so my post this week was my video post that I do was around a conversation I had in my head with myself about the dock workers and their demands. Their demands were some, an increase in pay and no automation, no AI, no whatever from senior leadership. And that's probably not realistic.
Right.
We need to be thoughtful. We have to have innovation, or we're going to go the way of the dodo bird or the way of Blockbuster when they had the opportunity to look at Netflix. So how do we prevent that, but also not fall into the trap of doing something that causes us to be considered spam and get blocked?
Yeah. So Alan commented, and he made a good point, right? It's harder to send handwritten notes with everybody working remotely. Have to hope they get forwarded from the physical office. What am I doing? I can do this. Look at that. I have the technology. So great point, Alan. And this is like not scripted. It's totally off the cuff. But one thing I would do in that instance, I can't do handwritten notes because I can't read my own writing. But if I could, and what I would do is handwrite a note, take a picture of it, and then send that through as an email. And so it's kind of a little, come on, KP, you're killing me.
He's struggling at the airport.
Yeah, I think we asked, by the way, guys, he's going through security, and we did ask him if he was pulled aside for extra screening that he go live, and maybe that's what's going on. Here we go.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, welcome back.
Yeah. Well, for whatever reason on StreamYard on an Android, AirPods don't work. So I'm having to listen to you guys on speaker or just hold the phone to my ear. So, I apologize for that.
You nailed it. It's an Android issue.
How many of the people on your plane are coming for the Georgia UT game, and how many are coming for Formula One? Because both are here in Austin this weekend. It's going to be a big weekend.
I know. Well, I'm in Orange County. I'm at Santa Ana Airport. I see a lot of burnt orange. I don't see any Georgia. I see a guy with a Ferrari hat, so I'm assuming he's F1. So, you never know. Exciting weekend in Austin. I love handwritten notes too. I know we went off the cuff there, but it's noticeably different, right? In this world of canned spam emails and texts and all the BS that's out there, it does set you apart. Nothing beats old-fashioned phone calls, getting on the phone and just building relationships. That's the deal. That is our business.
No doubt. Now there's still challenges to get the agreement to get on the phone, but there's still nothing like that. There's nothing like doing this even, right? Screen to screen, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and just connecting that way as well. I want to shift a little bit because Christy, kind of to go back to your post and, the dock workers and, demands not to put in, automation and AI, not real. It's not reality. We're not going backwards, right? In terms of all industry. And I thought we could talk a little bit about just our, the mortgage industry, right? We're an industry of fits and starts and peaks and valleys in terms of production, and then hiring up to catch up and try to get ahead of production, and then rapidly scaling down to adjust for the falls in production. And I've had a few interesting conversations over the last 2 weeks, just around studying how, kind of like we did back in our past life, Christy, at Flagstar, where we had this kind of baseline staffing that staffed to a level of production of X being however we got there. And then the ability to variabilize both staffing and the expense of people when volume surges, but then being able to quickly react by pulling back on that variable lever if volume, fell back. And I just wonder this next time around if as an industry we'll be better by leveraging, some of those techniques. And because it's heartbreaking to see all of the people that have been, displaced from our industry still with the frame on their picture on LinkedIn. And if we would have had some different solution for handling the volume, yes, they may not have been hired in the first place, but they might have been hired into a different industry and not be faced with the displacement they have today. I'm just curious how you guys think about that.
So one of the ways I think about tech, and we don't even have to talk about AI, but just innovation, is how do we get rid of the tasks that are mundane, that people don't bring value to, so that we can focus on the tasks that we do bring value to. So if I could automate the checkers, checking the checkers, that stare and compare, those types of things, I think it's a win for everybody. I can use your human intellect, the creativity, and what you bring to the table, because nobody is like you, BV. Nobody is like KP. And nobody is like each of the people that show up and work with us every single day. And how do we focus on what they bring versus getting that stuff just really off the table? So that's my first thing. But that also creates the opportunity for us to expand the capacity of each of those individual people, so that they can flex up and flex down. Because part of the calculation that we did at our former organization was looking at how does overtime impact it, right? So that was the first thing that we impacted, usually was overtime. Then we looked at our outsourcing and what was outsourced that could be flexed up and down easily. So think your MI partners for underwriting, et cetera. And then what is your true outsourcing? And if you're not looking at those things differently and looking at your automation and innovation and process workflow innovation, you know me, I carry a bunch of things around. This is the book that I just read, The Knowledge Work Factory. And it talks about the innovation that you can have without any technological interference, if you will. No need for IT, no need for a bunch of different departments, just you sitting at your desk. You're a knowledge worker. How can you innovate what you do to make yourself more efficient? And it was a great challenge to really think about and maybe even take to your leadership an execution strategy that says, hey, we're doing these things and I don't know why. So do they actually add value or can we get rid of them? And how often have we gone back and looked at what's on our plate and said, this is what we're going to take off. This is what we're not going to do anymore. I'll tell you a funny story of going to a closing with an attorney back a couple of years ago. And he's going through the package. He's like, and here's what this document means. And here's what this document means. Oh, and this document they have in there, but it was replaced by this document, but nobody wanted to get rid of it. So we still have this document. It's meaningless. Sign here. Here's the one that really tells you what's going on. And he said that a number of times. And it has stuck with me over the years that are we looking at the things that we do and taking away some of the things we no longer need to be doing?
Love that. So on the podcast, on the Crispin podcast that's out there this morning, Robbie and I talked this week, and we were talking about this topic. That's why I kind of kicked it in because it was timely in my mind. This topic of outsourcing, offshoring, onshoring, all the buzzwords, right? One of the threads we were pulling on was I remember in our time there at Flagstar that depending on the channel specifically, there was this message, this noise, this voice from sales typically that talked about the impact to the customer. Well, we can't do this over here because it will be a bad experience for the customer, right? And everything was about the customer experience. And now as I go back and think about, those types of conversations we were having, were we really talking about the consumer as the customer? Because I don't think we were, because in reality, us as consumers and us as home buyers and folks that are going to transact on a mortgage are only doing this once every X number of years, whether it's 4, 5, 7 years. And the average consumer, they don't know the difference between what's happening in the walls of ABC Mortgage versus happening on behalf of ABC Mortgage outside of the walls of ABC Mortgage. And it got me to thinking that when we were saying the customer, we were really talking about ourselves or our loan officers, or if we were in the TPO channel, our partners who were delivering loans to us. We were never really talking about the consumer. And so, here we are, 2024, and I still hear that comment. And so I'm starting to kind of push back now and get people to react a little bit differently. Because again, if we're all looking and honest with ourselves, do we want another, in 10 years, do we want to be looking at, 20% of the industry's workforce being displaced because we've just gone through another wave of spiked volume?
I'll just chime in since they're about to shut the doors and all that stuff. I cited on my video last night on LinkedIn, there's a Kinsey study that just came out. It said currently with existing technology, 800 million jobs globally can be automated. And the remaining that are there, 70% may suffer a pay cut. And so I was at a dinner in Beverly Hills with Salesforce, and they had their chief revenue officer from Slack. Remember, they purchased Slack for $28 billion a few years ago. And this topic came up, and I brought up a fireside chat I saw 8 years ago when I initially signed our Salesforce contract, sitting in front of Mark Benioff, their CEO and the editor of Wired magazine. And they said, when 50% of the world's jobs get automated, what is your corporate responsibility? How do you shepherd people into this new age? And that is is happening right in front of our face. And so we take it very seriously at PRMG to, to help keep jobs and repurpose people and use the automation to be more productive, not get rid of people.
Right on. Love
Take and
that.
grow market share, right? It's always a plan. And, this is a good time to talk about that as we get into budget season. And I would tell you that, most LOs that I've worked with over the years take it pretty seriously, that they are the CEO of their own organization, and they need to look at growth plans and resources and how they allocate them and what they're spending on themselves in addition to what the organization spends on them. But they also have to look at where could they do better with technology. Do they need a one of these to take notes in their meetings to help them with follow-up? Do they need a remarkable device to take handwritten notes? Do they need to, what things do they need to implement themselves to make themselves more productive? There's a great chart that talks about where the expectation is that commissions would go to and have gone over the years and where they actually went, right? And there's a pretty big delta there between where inflation would say that the average commission should be and where it is today for a variety of reasons, the biggest spike being in 2020 when home prices accelerated at a much faster growth than inflation. And so there may come a time where there's a reset to that, and it goes back to what kind of the trend line would have been. Maybe we see a deceleration in home prices. I hope not. I am certainly, Logan, please don't yell at me. I'm not saying that that's coming, but it could. But there's other forces that could impact it, because as the consumer gets more savvy, as they do more shopping around, there may be different cost or pricing structures that come into play. And how do you prepare to do more with less? Or how do you restructure your team and say, okay, here is the revenue opportunity, but I'm going to need to do more in order to obtain that business. So now I have to get more efficient and bring in more loans. I have to go take market share. Maybe not everybody, ends up choosing to be in the business, because we know we have a number of originators just from a national perspective that are of retirement age. And when do they decide they've had enough, or they no longer want to be in the business? And we haven't had as many new folks come into the business. So what's the opportunity to grow and take market share as a newer market entrant versus an older one, regardless of commission size or structure or home price sales, et cetera? So I think there's just some huge opportunities there to think about our own personal productivity.
I mean, I use some flavor of AI every day. And, what I'm using is usually to accelerate an idea or generate ideas. Right. And so it'd be crazy for any of us to say, oh, I'm going to never use, AI because of X, Y, or Z. We're all using it to some degree every day anyway. I mean, we're right now streaming to a platform, LinkedIn, that has AI embedded all over the place. So, and your note taker, there's probably hopefully thousands, but maybe a couple dozen people listening to us right now, maybe taking notes from this conversation the same way your note taker takes notes for you. Final parting thoughts. So, every year at the MBA, there seems to be, after the fact, there seems to be like this prevailing theme. It's like, I remember a couple of years ago, it was all about blockchain, right? I do have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of AI conversations next week. Any other, besides AI and blockchain, any other prediction for what we'll be talking about? Let's let KP go.
Okay, yeah, KP, jump in before you take off.
Yeah, I would just say there's going to be a lot of positivity. Rates are coming down, Fed's cutting. Next year is going to be good. Projections are high. We'll get the latest from Mike Frentantoni, Marina Walsh, and team. Should be good for numbers next year. And I think people are going to leave there pretty excited about 2025. Remember, last year everyone was like, survive the 25 or 2 years ago, and I hated that. Stupid. We're going to thrive in 25.
Love that. Love it.
I think that's true. I think the other big topic of conversation will be the presidential election, and not necessarily choosing sides, but talking about a little bit of what we talked about last week. What have the candidates put forward? Which ones of those ideas are we championing as an organization that are good for the housing industry? Because regardless of who resides in the White House, regardless of the makeup of Congress, it is still our everyday mission to get up and have an impact in people's lives. I got the opportunity to listen to a really amazing message from our phone system of the father of one of our borrowers talking about the impact, very emotionally talking about the impact we had in his son's life by creating this homeownership opportunity, and what it does for his financial future, what it does for stability, what it does for, mental health, in addition to creating community. That's how he ended the message. You have helped create community in his life, and how important that was. It's a great reminder. Like, I want to save the message and listen to it anytime I'm not stoked about sitting in my chair. That's what we get to do every day. And so regardless of what the political landscape, regardless of the regulatory landscape, regardless of the fact that FICO has said they're going to increase the cost of the credit score, by multiple dollars, which is an astronomical increase. Regardless of any of those things, we have a duty and a responsibility to help people become homeowners and become successful homeowners. And so I think that's what we're going to walk away with, the theme of this being, what are the new things that we need to try to solve some of the problems or tackle some of the problems that we've been faced with as an industry that have exacerbated over the years? So I think it's going to be some really good conversation around those things. Maybe not solutions yet, but at least some good conversation and forward progress.
I'm with you both. I think you both are spot on. I can feel just leading into it more of a positive vibe, and so excited to hit the streets of Denver. I know we're going to do one more show before we get there. I want to throw out one thing for the audience. Christy, KP, Jody, Robbie, and I trade emails during the week and kind of riff on some talking points. We'd love to get feedback from you all in the audience. So if there's things you want to hear us talk about or investigate or research, throw them in the comments, DM any one of us. We'd love to get some listener and audience participation as well in the topics that we bring each week to The Last Word. And with that, this is The Last Word, presented by Christy Commentary.
KP, call me when you land.
Horns up.
Take it off now.
There's nowhere.
Cheers.
Else to reach the freeway.
Bye, everyone.